Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to the first of many sessions that will take place on the GIA's website and column and I would say entire view where we're going to talk about books. This is called the Reading Circle. I would like to begin with the recitation of the Holy Quran and thereafter hand over to Brother Zafar Ahmed who will do the official welcome. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين رب زدني علما وارزقني فهما. My Lord, increase me knowledge and grant me understanding. Brother Silver, over to you to introduce the entire program this afternoon.
Jazakallah, thank you very much, Brother Abdullah, Sujee, and everybody that joined us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All glory, thanks, and praise belongs to Allah, the eternally merciful, creator, nourisher, and sustainer of the world, especially merciful Lord of the world and master of the day of judgment, to whom is our ultimate return. Our purest and choicest salutations, durood and salam, to our spiritual master, the best of Allah's creation, the most distinguished of all the prophets, the most eloquent in speech, the most noble in character, the perfect example for all of mankind, and indeed a mercy to all of humanity. I trust and pray you are all enjoying the fruits of the blessed days of Dhul Hijjah. May Allah accept all of your ibadah and dua. Jazakallah, thank you very much. My name is Zafar Ahmed. I'm the principal of Al Falaq College, Durban in South Africa, and I'm also an executive member of the Global Association of Islamic Schools. GAIS, as we are known, envisions a world where Islamic schools positively impact their communities by educating students to embody ihsan, inshallah. This reading circle is an initiative of GAIS where we choose a book or a chapter from a book or a journal article or a YouTube video and invite you to an online discussion where possible, as like today, we will also interact with the author. We're very blessed to have Shk Yawar amongst us today. The main purpose is to introduce guests to a relevant text, to provide a stimulus for discussion and thought leadership, and to direct our attention to think of some issues that might be in our blind spot. So it gives me immense pleasure to welcome you to this inaugural session of the GAIS Reading Circle with our special respected author and guest, Shk Yawar Baig. And what better book can we discuss at this inaugural session than the leadership lessons from the life of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. With that, I hand you over back to our host, Brother Abdullah Sujee, inshallah. Shukran, jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Brother Zafar, thank you for that introduction. I hope I'm clear now. Please put it on the chat if I'm not clear. I've increased the volume of these new headphones that I have for earpods. I want to introduce Shk Yawar Baig. Firstly, a sincere friend, a leader in his right, an author, a life coach, a leader, and a practical person, to say the least. There's much more that I would like to say about the man, but it is best to learn about him through the books that he has written. Shk Yawar has published 40 books. I've read a few of them, and I found that in the book, there's a practical dimension to everything that you want to learn and everything that you might want to share with people as well. Today, we meet the man in person, online, on Zoom, so to speak, so that you and I can understand the reasoning behind practical leadership. Alhamdulillah, our book of choice today, Leadership Lessons from the Life of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and the author Mirza Yawar Baig. Shk Mirza, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome onto the program, The Reading Circle on GAIS. Shk Yawar, you can unmute yourself there.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan, Brother Abdullah, for this wonderful introduction. And it's a great pleasure to be here on Zoom with you, with all of you. And let us hope that before too long we can actually meet in person. It's been too long since I've met all of you in person.
Alhamdulillah.
That is what
Alhamdulillah.
Inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. I want to get started and put out the format to our listeners and to our viewers. For the first 25 minutes, hopefully, there'll be a discussion between Shk Yawar Baig and myself. Thereafter, we'll be opening up the chat for you to talk directly to Shk. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat. If you want to talk directly to Shk, by all means. So Shk, here it goes. Leadership lessons from the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But I want to say,
if I can say one word, as far as the questions are concerned, what I would suggest, and I have found this in the best in all of these years, which is that if people can type their questions into the chat box, and then I will pick them up from there and I will answer them. I think that thing works
perfectly,
rather than people speaking, because usually that takes a long time. So it's much better to do it in the chat box if they are agreeable.
Absolutely. I think we'll go with that suggestion because it's a good one. Now, I want to begin with a quotation which I learned from Shk. What is the effect of being alive? Right? It really caught my attention because one of the best effects of being alive is the ability to read and the ability to write. So let's begin. What was the inspiration behind this book? That's a precursor to our formal questions that we have, because that is what the listeners need to understand, that there's inspiration to something great. Shk Yawar?
Yeah, the inspiration to this book has a name, and that name is Ibrahim Bam, Maulana Ibrahim.
Okay.
And may Allah bless him, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him for what he inspired me to do. In one of my visits, during one of my visits, Maulana Bam told me, people talk about leadership of this person, that person, and so on. And you also are a leadership consultant and what. So why not look at the leadership of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Now that was the idea that he planted in my mind, and the rest, as they say, is history. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused that to germinate. And then in 2008, I was invited to speak at the International Hajj Conference in Saudi Arabia. The Ministry of Hajj has this annual conference to which they invite people, scholars from all over the world. So I was invited in 2008 as the person from India to speak at the International Hajj Conference. And that's a long story anyway. That's I won't take your time for that story now. But the point is that when I went there, after we finished the conference, and then we finished Hajj, and after Hajj we were going for ziyarah to Masjid al-Nabawi al-Sharif, to Medina. And as I was sitting in I was in this big coach, I made sure I was sitting right in the front, my wife and I. And as we were sitting there, I saw getting closer to Medina, I saw the minarets of the Haram. And when I saw the minarets of the Haram, the question that kept me alive and which came to my mind was that what was this? What did they see? What did Rasulullah see when he walked on this road? And that road is quite literal, because that particular road which you take from Makkah to Medina is the actual road which Rasulullah and Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq and their companions, that's the road that they took for Hijrah. The road was actually laid, at that time it was King Fahd, it was laid exactly on that track. And there is a saying there that on this track, when we drive, you cross a very, very deep ravine. And they say that the architect went to the king and he said, look, building a bridge across this ravine is going to cost so many million. If you don't mind, I suggest we bypass it, we skirt it, and it will be so much cheaper. And I believe he said, no, I am paying for this road from my personal funds, and it will go the way Rasulullah meant. So they built that bridge. So as we were coming close to Medina, I remember looking at the minars and thinking to myself, what is it that the Prophet ﷺ saw? Because obviously he didn't see the minars there. And I said to myself, what is it that happened in this little village? Literally village. I mean, it was a small oasis, a little village with date palm orchards and some fields and so on, some bit of agriculture. What is it that happened here that quite literally changed the world? And that is the genesis of this. And this is what got me thinking. And then, of course, it took a few years of reading and research and whatnot. And alhamdulillah, I was able to write this book, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his acceptance of this work, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. That brings to the fact that this book, it establishes sound realism, because what you're saying is what we've experienced as well, because many of us have been for Hajj and we've been on that same road as well. So thank you for that. Now, in chapter 1, in the opening, the following grabbed my deep attention, and I'm going to read this. I would like to begin by mentioning 5 extraordinary qualities of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, exemplified and successfully inculcated in those who followed him, such that he was able to forge a team, the likes of which the world had never seen. From a collection of totally desperate drives who were best known for intestine fighting over inconsequential matters, yet they became benchmarks to the world and torchbearers of guidance wherever they went. Now, yes, we've read the 5 extraordinary qualities, but I would like Sheikh to list the 5 extraordinary qualities of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because in essence, it was the inspiration to the book as well. Sheikh?
Yeah, you see, before we go to the 5 qualities, I want to, and I know you're going to ask me that question later, perhaps. The reason I say extraordinary, because that is to use our modern day terminology, the extraordinary is the platform, that is the OS, the operating system on which everything else runs. Everything else is worth only if it is extraordinary, because what is extraordinary stands out. What is extraordinary stands out, and what is not extraordinary falls by the wayside. So it is something to think about and say what is extraordinary, and that's the reason why I use that as the framework. Now, in the qualities themselves, so we are looking now at the qualities themselves are faith. It is the goal that he was engaged in accomplishing, his commitment towards that, the kind of team that he built and had, and the quality of the work that they did. But not just these words. It's not just faith. It is the extraordinary faith. It is the extraordinary goal. It is the extraordinary commitment. It's the extraordinary team, and it's the extraordinary quality of their work and their effort. So I think that is a very important point to keep in mind, because without that extraordinary, it's just words. So we are saying here it's not just words; it's a lot more than words. And what makes it more than words is the fact that it is all extraordinary. I think that's the thing that I want to.
The essence.
Yeah, the essence of that.
Yes, I would agree with that, because extraordinary goals, as we always understand, inspires extraordinary actions and results, because ordinary people, like you always say, end up being a grain of rice in a sack, to use your quotation there. So again, the key is to do more than what others think, and that is wise, But I'm intrigued by the story of the soldier who lost a friend in World War II. Now, it's very amazing that you bring World War II into the Sirah. Sheikh Yawar, I believe, used this anecdote to illustrate the quality of faith and making it real with events we can relate to in context of what we see in the world today with wars and all of that. Surely the teaching points are many. Take us through this, that you bring in something of World War II, connecting it to the Sirah, and then contextualizing it for us. Take us through it because people sometimes, in most cases, read the Sirah, with blinkers, and they only see it in that fashion. But you have managed to look at it from different angles. Sheikh Yawar?
Yes, the issue here is not so much World War II, but the example of the soldier itself. And I use that because I mean I'm completely totally anti-war, but in terms of examples, a soldier is quite literally a sign of the maximum commitment that somebody can have to a cause, because a soldier is literally putting his life on the line. That everyone else, whether it's a business person or whoever it is, they are talking about things at a different level. They're actually, their life itself is not on the line. But for a soldier, the life is on the line. It's live or die. Now, in that kind of commitment situation, first of all, the thing to say here is that unless we have that kind of commitment, that success is not possible. Because as I say, you need to differentiate. Differentiation creates brand, brand enables loyalty, loyalty enables influence. And without brand, you are a grain of rice in a sack. So that is the framework we are working on. So as a soldier, this complete commitment, and part of this commitment is to understand that everything will not always make sense in a logical perspective. People have to, so it may not make sense in a logical perspective, but then that is where the leap of faith comes. So you still do something, even though it logically may not make immediate sense to you, but you still do that because of your belief and because of your commitment to the cause. And that is what we see in the life of Rasulullah and his Sahaba, that if you, at any point in time in the Sirah, if you look at it and say, for example, take the number one example of him standing on Safa and announcing the issue of Islam, where he called the people wa subaha, and people came running. Now, logically, I have this conversation with myself and say that I am a management consultant, I am a leadership consultant, and if Rasulullah had come to me and he said that this is what I plan to do, what is your advice? I would tell him, I would fall at his feet, I would fold my hands, and I would say, Ya Rasulullah, do anything but this, right? Do anything but this. This is not how you want to announce something like a complete change of life. We are not just talking about worship or not, that is the core of life, because as far as the people of Makkah were concerned, it was not only, as far as the Quraysh were concerned, it was not only about theology, it was very little about theology. It was even more about social norms, it was about business, it was about their lifestyle. Everything revolved around the Kaaba and what was happening in the Kaaba, and Rasulullah was intending to turn that thing upside down on its head. So I would say, Ya Rasulullah, please do not approach it in this way. Do not go and stand on the hill and do not make this announcement. Please don't do that. Do it in a different way. Let us go gradually, talk to individual people, maybe approach it from a social activist perspective. Let us look at it from a moral teacher perspective. Here are the evils in society. Don't talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't talk about Tawheed. Say here are some evils in society. Alcoholism is evil. Yes, we all know it's an evil. And so on and so on. Approach it from that side. And once you have some kind of support and so on, then you can think about announcing this new religion or this way of life. I would never say do it the way he did it. But he did it because he is guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he knows what he's doing, and therefore his way was the best way because of because he's guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the whole point is that we are looking at something here now where it is within portion, not logical, and that is where the faith of it comes in, to say that I will still do it because I know this is the way and this will succeed. And that's where the story of the soldier, he didn't know whether that his friend is going to be alive. This was faith. Much more likely was what his officer said to him. He said, "Look, the man is dead. I mean, why are you going there?" But then when he went there, he found his friend was alive, and his friend said, "I knew that you would not leave me alone." Right. So the thing is that happened only because he took the risk of putting his own life on the line. Here is a man who's even if he is alive, he's going to die, because that's how it seemed to be. Whereas his thinking is, well, I am alive, I am healthy. What sense make? So it's something which doesn't make sense in the traditional or the logical way, but he still does that because of his commitment to his friendship. Now, if that is his commitment to his friendship, I ask myself, what should be our commitment to our faith and our deen? And this is what Rasulullah did. And you can see this trend and this thread throughout his blessed life, where in place after place, in thing after thing, you find that he has demonstrated this level of commitment. Yeah, and so did the Sahaba.
No, thank you for that, because it resonates with the reason that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's leadership was based on real things that we ourselves can do. Now, leadership is not a station you arrive at, and Sheikh's book illustrates that leadership begins with the self, with the person. Now, why is it that Sheikh gives significance or a significant space in the book in discussing Tawakul, Tawbah, patience, and gratitude? Because in the main, books on leadership begin with the groundwork on attitude, goals, SWOT analysis, positive self-image. And here, for me, it was like reading a book where leadership was turned on its head. Tawakul, Tawbah, patience, and gratitude. Sheikh?
Yes, it is, first of all, the reason I am saying these things is because this is what we see in the blessed life of Rasulullah. And the sequence that it goes really is to build, when we say build leadership, we are looking at building a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're saying, well, why must you lead at all in the first place, right? What's the need? I mean, so what if I say that, look, I'm not interested in leadership, period. I'm willing to go with the flow, whatever is happening in the world, let it happen, not my problem. So one could say that, but we are saying here that we are not saying that. On the contrary, on the other hand, we are saying that leadership is not something that is even it's not something which is even recommended. We are saying here leadership is something which we are saying is practically fard. It's a Muslim must lead, because this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent us into this world for amal bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar, to enjoin good and to forbid evil, and therefore a Muslim must lead. Now, how do you do that? And this is the fourth step or the continuum for that. And it begins really with gratitude, which is shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now we say we take shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask ourselves, what are we grateful for? And there will be a number of things that we are grateful for to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is where we are ask ourselves, what are the things that I'm grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for? Once we have that clear in our minds and approach life and approach the world from a concept, from a perspective of gratitude, we come across difficulties in life. And there is where we have sabr. Now, difficulties, some of these difficulties are maybe environmental, but a lot of those difficulties from a leadership perspective are difficulties because you have chosen a leadership stance. Now, many times people have this illogical expectation that just because you have a good intention and you want to lead, that life will be easy and that people will welcome you and people will say, oh, fantastic, what a wonderful thing. And that is not how it works. It's almost the opposite. When you stand up there, when you want to lead, you will find that you are now a target and people use you for target practice. So you find that a lot of people, you will get a lot of criticism, you get a lot of people taking pot shots at you. A lot of that will be unjustified. Obviously, something will be justified, and that you have to look at. But a lot of it will be unjustified, and that will still hurt. So how do you get through all that? And that is where the patience and from the Sirah of Mirza Sallam, if you take the whole instance of Taif, his journey to Taif, which was, he asked asked him, what was the most difficult incident in your life, Ya Rasulullah? Because she asked him this question after Uhud, after he'd been injured and so on. So she said, even keeping in that also in mind, which was the most difficult part of your life? And he said, it was when I went to Taif. Now, if you look at the Taif incident, the seriousness of physical injury was much less. In Uhud, it was far more. In Uhud, it was literally life-threatening, whereas in Taif, it was not. But the injury to the individual, to the heart, the injury to his whole, what should be, in normal terms, we would say, to your self-respect, to your self-concept. I mean, that was huge. But at the out of that, what came? Out of that came a feeling and an azam, a determination to do what Allah sent him to do even more and even better. Because he said, oh Allah, I will work to please you hatta tarda, until you are pleased. And for that his Rabb Jalla Jalaluhu said, وَلَسَوْفَ يُؤْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. Tomorrow, meaning in the Akhirah, your Rabb will please you. In Surah Al-Duha, وَلَسَوْفَ يُؤْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib used to say that people say that the ayat of greatest hope in the Quran is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ibadiya alladhina asrafu ala anfusihim la taqnatu min rahmatillah. And that whole ayah, Sayyidina Ali said that people say this is the ayah of greatest hope, but we, meaning the family of Rasulullah, he said, we say the ayat of greatest hope is وَلَسَوْفَ يُؤْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى, because his Rabb promised him that he will please him, and we know that he will never be pleased until every single one of those who believe in him is in Jannah.
Absolutely. Again,
now that came out of this sabr, that came out of this patience. Now,
patience. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, tawbah is the foundation on which everything else works. Again, like we talked about being extraordinary, so also tawbah. To turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tawbah is to turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When tawbah, as we know, just the one word is used, it also means istighfar. So we're looking at istighfar, which is to apologize, which is to seek forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and tawbah is to turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is based on which we are doing all this. And Tawakul is, again, we go back to our the soldier story, which is Tawakul is where the greatest and the best example of Tawakul in the Sirah, in my view, is the dua of Rasulullah just before the battle of Badr, where he stood and he raised his hand and he said, oh Allah, this is, you promised me your help, give us your help. And if this small band of people if they perish, then there will be no one to worship you on the face of the earth. Now, this is a classic example of Tawakul, because Tawakul comes out of sabr, which is patience, and sabr is, in Islam, is not just sitting around expecting things to happen, but sabr is a state where a person does the maximum that they can possibly do, and then they stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they raise their hand and they say, oh Allah, all my effort is worth nothing without your help, so I am seeking your help. Tawakul is the tawheed of the heart. Tawakul is what ensures that you do not commit the shirk of thinking that your effort achieves anything by itself. Right?
Absolutely.
So no matter what, that's why I call Tawakul the tawheed of the heart. because otherwise it's a very human tendency that if I'm making effort, I'm investing, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, when the results come, then I feel, okay, this is mine. But what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teach us? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that when the people enter Islam in groups, in hujum, right? إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. When the help of Allah comes, and when you see people entering Islam, not in ones and twos, but in hujum, in crowds, in multitudes, what do? فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَاسْتَغْفِرْهُ إِنَّهُ كَانَ تَوَّابًا. Make tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make hamd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and make istighfar. Now think about this. You ask for the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're doing the work of the deen, and you are seeing success. What is the istighfar for?
Absolutely.
I didn't commit any sin. I mean, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. But Allah is saying, no, make istighfar, because if you do not make istighfar, then you will have kibr, you will have takabur, you will feel, oh, fantastic, this is my job. I'm getting 1,000 shahada per month in my organization, right? So I put it on Facebook and I put it everywhere else, and I say, oh, this is the success of my organization. This is what I'm doing. People are accepting Islam. This is our work, and so on and so on. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un, because you are committing shirk. You are ascribing to yourself what was actually the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and without the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, none of that would have happened. So Allah is saying, فَاسْتَغْفِرُوا فَسَبِّ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَاسْتَغْفِرُوا إِنَّهُ كَانَ تَوَّابًا. He is the one who forgives. And that's why the issue of tawbah and istighfar, and this is where the issue of tawakul comes, inshallah.
Really important for what you said. And people are driven by the fact that a leader must be committed. But commitment must be extraordinary as well. Now, let's continue on that trajectory, because the book and it's also meant for teachers, it is meant for principals, it is meant for staff members, it is meant for every person in a leadership organization. But the question is, extraordinary commitment and extraordinary teams close the circle, so to speak. The book calls on the reader to reflect on these two qualities to enhance credibility of action. Credibility of action, character and refinement of speech, amongst many other qualities, demonstrate for us the need for leaders to use Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's example, in these ways, because we're always comparing ourselves to the leaders that we see in the corporate world, and their biographies and autobiographies are dominating ourselves. But little do we realize we have the example of Nabi Muhammad, Khatibul Nabiyin, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Shk Yawar, over to you.
I agree with you. See, first of all, the issue of taking corporate leaders as leaders, and you are right. I was doing a workshop here in our masjid here in America, and it was a house full, all young people. And I asked them, I said, name for me 3 global leaders, 3 leaders that you look up to. And they said Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and our Amazon guy, right? So Jeff Bezos. Now, this is in a masjid, and it's a completely Muslim audience. Now, I'm not blaming them. I'm saying that this is the trend of this world. And I can really, I can probably take a safe bet and say that randomly, if you ask any group of Muslims in the world saying, name for me 3 leaders, they will name for you 3 white male billionaires. They will not name for you a scholar. They will not name for you, a great artist. They will not name for you anyone. They will name for you 3 white male billionaires. This is our standard. And I'm saying that this standard must change. Because take, for example, Rasulullah. I always use this quote from the history of Turkey by Alphonse de Lamartine, because it's one of the most beautiful quotes. And he says, and I quote, "If greatness of purpose, smallness of means, and astounding results." Now he's talking about three things. If greatness of purpose, smallness of means, and astounding results are the three criteria of human genius, who would dare to compare any great man in history with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And this is by Alphonse de Lamartine, who is not known to be a friend of Islam or Muslims. He was a very highly, he was a historian, he was a political philosopher, he was a very highly critical man of Islam and Muslims. But that man is saying this. So the praise of an enemy, a praise of a critic, is the most sincere praise. You know, if you have somebody like me saying something good about Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you can say, well, you know, what else do you expect? He's going to say that. But if you have somebody like Alphonse de Lamartine saying that, then it's something to take seriously. So I'm saying here is somebody, and I can bet you that that statement, I don't think anyone has made about anybody else. So I'm saying here you have got an example of somebody who is seen as someone with an extraordinary goal, right? Greatness of purpose, smallness of means, and astounding results. Now you can see these two things. For example, greatness of purpose and smallness of means is a very common thing. Happens to a lot of us. And the result of that usually is that you are left with a dream and there is nothing to show at the end of it, and you die with your dream. There is no astounding result, right? Now, in the case of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you are not only looking at at the greatness of purpose, you are not looking only at small means, you are also looking at results. You are looking at actual results on the ground. And who can, as he said, who can dare compare? This is not a statement of love of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He's saying in actual physical terms, who can compare the results that Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam achieved, which is 1.5 billion people in the world today, 15 centuries later, take the name of Muhammad and they say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Right? So the issue is that who has this kind of result? So I'm saying that if somebody says, why should I look at Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as a leader and as an example for me to follow, especially if I'm not even Muslim, I would ask him, why not? Because here is a leader with this kind of a track record. Where else are you going to find this? Number two is he's the only leader, he's the only human being, for example, whose life has been so beautifully and so reliably documented in every intricate detail. Because that's the other thing. We don't want to follow leaders who are in the realm of some mythology, for example, right? They slowly sound good, but did it really happen? The question, was this person real? Did this actually happen? But in the case of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that question need not be asked. Yes, it happened. It was documented, and it was documented in such intricate detail. When I talk about the Sirah, I tell people, I said, I challenge you. I said, I challenge you. Think about the person that you love the most, whoever that is, maybe your friend, maybe your spouse, maybe your child, your parent, whoever, the person you love the most, and describe for me the bottom of their feet. What is the bottom of their feet? What are they like? I will guarantee you that you have no clue. Describe for me, how do they clip their nails? Which finger do they begin with, or begin with their thumb? Do they have a system? Do they follow a system? Or do they clip anything? Do you know that? Can you tell me, describe for me this thing? How does that work? I bet you that nobody can get it. But with Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, both of these, as well as many other things, have been actually documented.
If I could interject here.
Is the one who documented this thing about the feet. The whole point here is that here is a person who was so beautifully, who was an amazing leader, in very concrete terms. We are not talking here fan mail. We are not saying this, oh, we are saying this because we love him. No, you love him or you don't love him. Here is concrete information about the results of his leadership. And how he did that, who he was, has been so beautifully documented. Why would you not follow him? That's the question.
Absolutely. I want to get to the questions on the chat, but I want to read something which I found on page 66. It was always good to read it. It reads the following: miracle prophecy. A boulder stood in the path of the trench diggers and would not break despite their best efforts. So they came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He went with them and took the pickaxe and struck the boulder once. Lightning flashed and he said, Allahu Akbar. Then he struck it a second time and lightning flashed again and he said, Allahu Akbar. Then he struck it a third time and the boulder disintegrated into dust. Salman al-Farsi radiallahu anhu asked him, Ya Rasulullah, what was the lightning and why did you say Allahu Akbar? What I want the listeners to understand, the way Sheikh describes things, it's easy on the mind and it really engages you. It is not dense reading. It is words that are strung together such that any person can make sense of it in a way that would suit his own intellect, his understanding and context. So I want to congratulate Sheikh for that the book is well written. The words are well chosen. It is not too scholarly. It is not too academic. It feeds the mind contextually and on a relative ground. Perhaps if I could use the example from an education perspective. If a teacher wanted to learn how to teach leadership, this is an example of how we can read to the children as well. So let's get to the Q&A, Chef. We have the question from Umar Abdal.
Yeah, let me deal with this. I will take the question and I will read out the question and answer it. The question is from my very close and dear friend Umar Abdullah, and in his question is, in the Sheikh's eyes, what is the biggest challenge facing leaders now and how do they overcome it? I think this is also advice to choose your friends, because if you have a friend like Umar Abdullah, you can be sure that he'll ask you the most difficult questions. So I should re-evaluate my choice of friendship. May Allah bless him and may Allah bless you, Yawar. The biggest challenge facing leaders now is to stand up for the truth. There is no other challenge. This is the challenge, to stand up for the truth. And how do they overcome that? By remembering that one day they will be questioned. Because when we stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will not be asked what happened, we will be asked what did you do. And I think remembering that is very critically important as a leader if you want to stand for the truth. Standing for the truth has never been easy, will never be easy. And if anyone says, you know, today's world is so bad and so on and so forth, well, the world of Rasulullah was equally bad, if not worse. It's nothing, we have nothing to claim with respect to our world. Yet he stood for the truth. He did not hesitate. He stood for the truth. And that is the challenge. And that to me is an eternal challenge which will be there for all leaders of all time. Are you willing to stand for the truth? Are you willing? Now, having said that, is there a way of saying the truth? Is there a way of approaching it in a palatable manner? Yes, there is. But also, is there a boundary where it now goes into compromising and in the name of hikmah and in the name of saying it palatably, you don't speak the truth. You are actually telling lies. Is that both are possible? Both are possible. So it is very important to stand for the truth. And how do you overcome that challenge? Meaning, how do you overcome the hesitancy to stand for the truth? By remembering the day of judgment, that one day I am going to stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No matter who I am, no matter where I am, no matter what, big or small, powerful or weak, I will stand before Allah. And when I stand before Allah, Allah will not ask me what happened, because Allah knows what happened. Allah will ask me, what did you do? And that is a very important thing for us to keep in mind. Then we have, I think, two questions from Dr. Shafiq.
Yes.
Number one is non-Muslim might question if Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had such a charismatic leadership and skills and teaching, why no country on the earth claims to be an ideal Islamic state? I think that's a very valid question, and that is really not a question that I can answer because there should be. I mean, there is no doubt about that. There should be people who say, and when we say that we are Muslim, then we have to be willing to, to stand for our religion, right? Otherwise, what is the point in saying that we are Muslims? So to stand for your religion is very much part of part of our deen itself. Why is there no country? I can't answer that question. I mean, there should be. I completely agree with you. But why there isn't, I don't know. I think that's something for us to think about. Now, I would say, now you might say, well, this is, I also don't want this to be a completely hypothetical discussion. We're talking about countries. I'm saying the way to narrow it down again is to say, am I living by the teachings of Rasulullah? So if I am living by the teachings of Rasulullah, then I can think about this in the context of a country and say that if I ran a country, I would like to run a country on the basis of Islamic teachings, right? But if I do not apply Islam in my own life, then really, the country or society is a reflection of the individual, and the individual is a reflection of society. So this is what is happening in the world. The second question, also from Dr. Shafi: Muslims respect and are ready to die for Rasulullah, but rarely benefit from his teachings. How do we fill the gap? Exactly the same thing. By understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Rasulullah for a purpose, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this to us. He said, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. He said the Messenger sallallahu is the best example for you to follow, and to follow his beautiful uswatu hasana. Liman kana yarjullaha wal yawmal akhirah wa dhakarallaha kaseera. For the one who looks forward to the meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the day of judgment. So what must we do is to inculcate this in our lives. The reason we do not follow, we like to talk about Rasulullah. We will think, we will sing Naat and Nasheed, and we have jalsas and congregations and gatherings and so on, or in Rabiul Awwal and this and that, and we talk about, oh, Rabiul Awwal is such a blessed month. Forget Rabiul Awwal. Look at yourself. Look at yourself. Are you following the Sunnah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? If you are not on the Sunnah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, it doesn't matter whether Rabiul Awwal is blessed or not blessed, because you are going to be judged in the presence of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, not on the basis of Rabiul Awwal. You will be judged on the basis of your own personal action, and that is where we need to look at. Then there is a question from Brother Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam. Please list the most important habit, action, character trait you think a successful leader should have. I think I've said that in answer to the question of Brother Omar Abdullah, which is truthfulness, to speak the truth. Rasulullah ﷺ was distinguished by his beautiful title, As-Sadiqul Amin, even before he announced Islam. The truthful and the trustworthy. Being trustworthy is an outcome of being truthful. Nobody trusts somebody who tells lies. We have the beautiful hadith of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam where a young man came to him and he said to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said, Ya Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, I do many wrong things, but I've understood this is wrong, I should not do them, but I'm addicted to so many wrong things, so many things which are haram. So please advise me, tell me to stop one thing only. I cannot stop everything. One thing only, what should I stop? I will do that. And Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said to him, stop telling lies. He said, speak the truth. Speak the truth. Now, this man thought, well, this is easy because just one little thing. He didn't say stop drinking alcohol, stop gambling, whatever else he was doing. He said, no, this. So he said, this is good. Now, the story goes that evening, the man wants to go now and sit with his drinking buddies. And suddenly he thinks to himself, what if I meet Rasulullah tomorrow and he asks me, what were you doing last evening? What do I say? Because I promised that I will not speak lies. I will not tell lies. I will speak the truth. So now if I am going to go and I am going to tell him, am I going to say to the Prophet that I was drinking? I can't do that. So he stopped drinking. Now that one thing, which is to speak the truth, completely changed his life. So what should a successful leader have? What should anybody have? Number one quality is to speak the truth. Speak the truth to yourself and speak the truth to whoever you need to speak the truth. Then we have a question from Sobia Iram. Salaam alaikum. What common platform should be adopted by Muslim schools where they can introduce Muslim achievers and Muslims and the Muhammad Sallallahu as a great leader or example to live every act of life, because everyone is running in his own direction? You know, I say to people, what does a lamp do? Listen to the words. What does a lamp do to light up a dark room? What does a lamp do to the room to light up a dark room? The answer is a lamp does not do anything to the room. The lamp does something to itself, which is it lights itself. A lighted lamp spreads light. An unlighted lamp can do nothing. So I think the thing to do here is to say, how can we introduce this? How can we, in Muslim schools, how can we introduce the examples of Rasulullah and Muslim achievers? Is by personal example. By emulation is possible only when you have people to emulate, not when you are talking about people. When the children can see teachers who look and walk and talk and deal like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to do. And that is the most critically important thing, because as I say, children listen with their eyes. Children listen with their eyes. They don't care what you say until they see what you do. They don't listen with their ears. And not only children, everybody, the whole world listens with its eyes. Today, the whole world is saying to the Muslims the question that that our brother asked earlier, which is to say that if the example of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is really so powerful, how come your countries are not like that? How come your lives are not like that? I think that's a very painful but a very valid question. And that's a question we have to answer. So it is no good talking about Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, no good writing books and having jalsas and singing songs and whatnot. We have to look and walk and talk and deal like Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and then like the lamp. Light the lamp and you don't have to do anything else. It is natural and logical for light to spread. That's what light does.
Absolutely.
But does that only when it is lighted, right?
Absolutely. We have many questions. We have many questions there. I just want to...
Let me try to quickly. Brother Zafar's question, at Al-Falah College, we intend to make this a compulsory reading for grade 11 students by creating a module course on... Yes, Jazakallah khair, please do that. I may have sent it to you, but if I haven't, I will. There is a series of lectures of mine on each of these modules. I'll send that series of lectures to you. Most welcome to use that in your for your teachers training. There is also a diploma course on the International Online University, IOU, on this book, on the leadership lessons of Rasulullah, which is a free diploma course. Students can enroll for that, and they will also get a diploma in this from the International Online, the Islamic Online University. So that's a free resource that is there. And then we have a question here from Sovia Iram. At Unity International School, we also introduced Sirah course. Okay, Jazakallah khair. In your opinion, is there a link with entrepreneurship in business and leadership? Of course, there is, absolutely, without a doubt. Entrepreneurship in business and leadership, there is no difference. See, this.
Shk, can unmute his mic, please?
All right. Is there a link in entrepreneurship and business leadership? Yes, there is, because in my view, there is only one way of leadership. There is this is a fallacy that we think that we can lead in one way in this place and another way in that place. That is a sign of nifaq. It's a sign of hypocrisy. Because if I speak the truth, I will speak the truth everywhere. I mean, I can't be speaking the truth and I have a business in which I'm telling a bunch of lies and I have this false advertising. We have in India a brand of bottled water which advertises as 300% oxygen. Now, how is it possible? I mean, H2O is the formula. I mean, how do you have 300% oxygen, right? So this is the issue. There is one way of leadership, and that is the leadership based on truth. And no matter which area you're talking about, whether it is parenting, whether it's teaching, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it is running a country or running your own home, the basis is the leadership of truth, which is the leadership of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him.
Sheikh, I would like you to take the last question because we've got
Okay,
5 minutes by Keith Reddy, who says, I'm enlightened by this. May I ask, is there a differentiation between the Islamic leadership and other leadership concepts? 2 minutes on that one, and then inshallah we close the session.
All right. I mean, as I mentioned, I think I'm going to leave Brother Keith Reddy to answer that question for himself. Because as far as the Islamic leadership is concerned, this is what my book is about, right? And I will say, well, why don't you answer that question yourself and see if there is a difference between Islamic leadership and other leadership concepts. But to answer this question also, which I want to do, which is that the whole issue today of what passes in the name of leadership, not just entrepreneurial or leadership in entrepreneurship or any, but basic leadership is to compromise everything for the sake of so-called results. So we accept anything, we will say or do anything as long as it gets us results. Now, this is the exact opposite of what Islamic leadership is. We do not compromise principles for the sake of results. Like yesterday, somebody asked me this question. We had a Q&A session. Somebody asked me this question. If I have to give a bribe, is it halal? So I said, what does this have to give a bribe? You don't have to give a bribe. You choose to give a bribe because there is a price of not giving a bribe. I said, give me an example. He said, no, if I, in our countries, he's talking about, he's not talking about America, he's talking about different countries. Yeah, our so-called, our countries. He says, if a policeman stops me, if there's a traffic stop, if I have to give a bribe to get out of that. I said, no, you have to drive properly, not to get into that in the first place. You don't have to give a bribe, right? So this is what we do to ourselves. We say, well, I make halal on myself something which is haram by itself because I want to achieve some result. I said that is where the issue of leadership from an Islamic perspective comes in to answer Brother Keith's question.
Sheikh Yawar, it has been an exhilarating discussion to say the least. I see Brother Muhammad Azharuddin has posted the website link on the diploma course, Jazakallah for that, and I hope people can take that course. I want to conclude by saying that the leadership lessons of the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam are 11. Complete certainty, no compromise, putting himself on the line, resilience, face the facts, and having absolute faith in success. Goals come first before personal preferences, living his message, risk-taking, sacrificing short-term for long-term, magnanimity and forgiveness, transiting from person-led to process-driven, and succession planning and leadership development. These are the chapters you'll find in the book. I must mention that the questions this afternoon for us in South Africa and morning for other people has been really intriguing. It shows an intelligent group. It shows people really want to learn the truth, and people who are willing to learn, and people who are willing to engage to better their own selves. And that is remarkable, and that is what comes through this book, Jazakallah khair. And experience is not what happens to you, but what you do with it and what happens to you. That is what must happen now that you're going to read this book. What will happen to you? What are you going to take from here? On that point, inshallah, we will ask our Sheikh, we've got 3 minutes to conclude with a dua, and thereafter we close the session, inshallah. So, Ahmed, a closing comment from you.
Jazakallah, thank you very much for everybody who attended. Sheikh Yawar, we really thank you for your taking out the time and being our host on this inaugural program, mashallah. And we pray for its success going forward, inshallah. Thank you very much, Abdullah, and to everybody else behind the scenes to have put on this successful webinar today. Jazakallah.
Alhamdulillah. Sheikh, a short dua, please, to bless our occasion also with the recitation of the Quran or any dua. And thereafter, to bring us to 3 o'clock, South African Standard Time.
Jazakumullahu khairan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless this gathering. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen. Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam tasliman kathiran kathira. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless this gathering, to fill your lives with khair and barakah, to enable each one of you to become a standard bearer of Islam and to be a living, walking, talking model of the beautiful Sirah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and to become inspirational leaders and inspirational teachers, inspirational parents for all your children in whichever form they come to you, as either as students, as your own children, or as people who work with you or for you. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to spread the beautiful light of the Sirah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam all over the world, inshallah. I strongly encourage especially the madaris, to teach the Sirah as a specific subject, specifically like they teach everything else. And this is something which must be in the madaris, in the schools. I know in Al-Falah you're going to do that. May Allah bless you. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put barakah in this. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك نستغيث. أصلح لنا شأننا كل لا إله إلا أنت. وصلى الله على نبي الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. والحمد لله رب العالمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك اللهم ونتوب إليك.
Jazakallah everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is your host Abdullah Sujee signing off.
جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.